Let's talk about a man of profound contradictions, Seneca. He was a brilliant playwright, a powerful statesman, and an advisor to an emperor. But, he's most famous for being a Stoic philosopher, a guy who preached a life of virtue and simplicity.
And this is where it gets really interesting. This is the central puzzle of his life. It's a paradox that makes us ask a pretty tough question. What does it actually mean to live by a philosophy when you're staring down immense power and temptation? How could a man preaching simplicity end up as one of the wealthiest guys in all of Rome?
So how did he explain this? Well, Seneca had an answer for his critics. He basically argued that a wise person doesn't have to be poor, just as long as their wealth was gained honestly. And this is the crucial part, as long as they were ready to give it all up in a heartbeat. It's a pretty fascinating justification, and one we're definitely going to unpack.
All right, so to really get our heads around how Seneca navigated this, we first need to understand the man himself and, the totally wild world that shaped him.
So Lucius Annaeus Seneca was born way back around 4 BC in what we now call Spain. He was brought to Rome when he was just a kid, and wow, he quickly made a name for himself. He was a brilliant speaker and lawyer. He wasn't just some philosopher sitting in an ivory tower. He was a major player right in the heart of the Roman Empire.
But here's the thing. His path to power, it was anything but a straight line. We're talking a total roller coaster of political intrigue, public shame, and just unbelievable twists of fate.
I mean, just look at this timeline. It shows you how absolutely dramatic his life was. In 41 AD, he's exiled. He loses everything. Then, just 8 years later, he's called back by Agrippina, the emperor's new wife, for a super important job, tutoring the future emperor, a kid named Nero. And then, bam, by 54 AD, his student is on the throne, and Seneca is suddenly one of the most powerful and influential men in the entire world.
But this new job, well, it put him in an unbelievably dangerous spot. His whole purpose was to guide and, let's be honest, try to restrain a young man who would go down in history as one of Rome's most notorious tyrants.
And you know what? For a little while, it actually worked. The first few years of Nero's rule were seen as a time of pretty good governance, and that was largely thanks to the influence of Seneca and his ally, Burrus. They somehow managed to steer the young emperor toward a just and humane path. But that didn't last. Nero's darker side started to come out. Seneca was forced into some truly terrible compromises, like having to write a letter to the Senate justifying why Nero murdered his own mother. He tried to rationalize staying in his post with arguments like this one, suggesting it was better to take what you could from a tyrant than to face the alternative. So you gotta ask yourself, right? How did the guy even survive this mentally? Serving a tyrant, navigating deadly court politics, living with these huge moral compromises? Well, the answer is at the very core of everything he ever wrote. For Seneca, Stoicism wasn't just some abstract theory. It was a practical, hands-on system for thriving in exactly the kind of insane, high-stress world he was living in. And at its heart, it teaches you one simple thing. Figure out what you can control and what you can't, and then focus all your energy on what you can.
So let's break down the toolkit he was using. First up, and this is huge, focus only on what you can actually control. Your own thoughts, your judgments, your actions. Everything else, Nero's moods, political plots, that's all external. Second, practice resilience. Hardship isn't something to run from, it's a chance to build strength. Third, and this is the big one, live by virtue. For a Stoic, that's the only real good. If you could master this internal world, you could achieve what they called ataraxia, a state of serene, unshakable calm no matter what chaos was happening outside.
Well, as you can probably guess, a life like this and a philosophy like this were bound to face one final, ultimate test. So even after Seneca tried to retire from public life, he just couldn't escape Nero's growing paranoia. In 65 AD, he was accused of being part of a plot to assassinate the emperor. There was no trial. Nero just sent a simple order. Seneca had to kill himself.
And the way it went down, according to the historian Tacitus, who wrote all about it, was, well, it was exactly how a Stoic would go. He faced his death calmly, he comforted his friends and his family, and he showed this final, unwavering commitment to the principles he had taught his entire life.
Okay, so after all that, what's the big takeaway? Why in the world are we still talking about this complicated, contradictory guy 2,000 years later?
It's because the stuff he was wrestling with, it's timeless. I mean, think about it. How do we cope with stress and failure? How do we control our anger or our anxiety? How do we make the most of the short time we have on this earth? His letters and essays aren't just theory. They're like a practical user's manual for being human.
And this quote right here, it's one of his most powerful ideas, and man, does it hit home in our world today. True wealth, Seneca said, isn't about having more stuff, it's about wanting less. It's about mastering your desires instead of letting them master you.
But if you had to boil it all down to one single urgent piece of advice, something that really captures his whole philosophy, it's about how we should approach every single day of our lives. Yeah, this one right here, this gets to the absolute core of his message. The past is over, the future isn't guaranteed. The only thing we actually own is this present moment. So Seneca's final lesson is really a call to action. Live with purpose, live with virtue, and live with urgency. Right here, right now. His life really just leaves us with one simple question. What are you going to do with your day?